Rain hammered the suspension bridge as two armed men forced Evelyn Cross, a brilliant 440-pound bridge engineer, onto her knees beside a freshly severed support cable. Don Luca Moretti stood before her, holding surveillance photographs that showed Evelyn planting a device beneath the roadway only 20 minutes earlier. His armored convoy was already approaching, carrying every leader of the Moretti alliance to a peace summit. She had 60 seconds to explain why her fingerprints covered the detonator found in her truck. Evelyn refused to defend herself. Instead, she stared at the bridge towers and whispered, "Your drivers must leave their vehicles now." Luca raised his hand to authorize the shot, then Evelyn threw herself against the emergency control panel. The center span collapsed behind the lead car, stopping the convoy 1 yard before an invisible fault line split open. She had saved them, but Luca saw something worse below. The explosives were wired to a design only his dead father had possessed. Rain hammered the Bellarosa Bridge hard enough to turn the unfinished roadway into black glass. Evelyn Cross knelt beside the eastern suspension cable, her wrists bound behind her, her soaked emerald blouse clinging to the generous curves of her nearly 440-pound figure. 3 armed Moretti soldiers surrounded her. A fourth aimed a pistol at the back of her head. Don Luca Moretti stood before her in a dark overcoat, holding 6 surveillance photographs beneath the glare of a portable floodlight. Each image showed Evelyn beneath the bridge 20 minutes earlier, opening an access panel, attaching a silver device to the support structure, then carrying an empty equipment case back to her truck. The final photograph showed her looking directly into the camera. "Your fingerprints are on the detonator," Luca said. "Your authorization code disabled the structural alarms, and someone transferred $2 million into an account registered under your mother's name." Evelyn lifted her chin. Rain streamed through her auburn hair and across a face that showed fear but no surrender. "My mother has been dead for 9 years. Dead people are useful when someone needs somewhere to hide money." Behind Luca, 6 armored SUVs were approaching the bridge through the storm. Their headlights appeared beyond the northern checkpoint, like a line of white stars. Inside those vehicles were the heads of 5 allied families, Luca's younger brother, and the federal intermediary who had promised them control of the eastern shipping corridor. If the convoy failed to reach Bellarosa Hall by midnight, the alliance agreement would expire. 3 rival families would seize the ports before dawn. Evelyn watched the vehicles instead of the gun pointed at her. "They need to stop." Luca glanced at his watch. "You have 60 seconds before they reach the center span. Use them carefully. Get everyone out of those vehicles. You planted explosives under the roadway, and now you want my family standing in the open? The explosives aren't the primary threat." Luca crouched in front of her. For 11 months, Evelyn had supervised the restoration of every bridge used by the Moretti organization. She had challenged his contractors, rejected cheaper materials, and once halted an entire convoy because she heard a vibration no instrument had detected. Luca had trusted her judgment often enough for his captains to resent it. He had also trusted her in his bed. That memory made the evidence feel less like an operational betrayal and more like a blade pushed between his ribs. "What did you attach beneath my bridge?" he asked. "A diagnostic relay." The bomb squad identified it as a remote trigger because someone replaced its internal board after I installed it. "Who?" Evelyn's eyes moved toward the soldiers. "Not here." Luca's expression hardened. "Every man standing here has protected my blood, and one of them reported my access code before I finished entering it." No one moved, but the atmosphere changed. The lead SUV passed the northern checkpoint. 40 seconds. Luca held up the photograph of her carrying the equipment case. "You entered a restricted chamber alone because your maintenance chief cancelled my crew. He says you dismissed them." He's lying. Convenient Evelyn looked past him toward the bridge towers. The western cables were vibrating against the wind in an irregular rhythm. 3 short shudders, a pause, then one violent snap. She had seen that pattern once before, in a laboratory collapse test. Her face drained of color. "They've cut the internal dampers." Luca rose enough. "If the convoy breaks on the center span, the weight transfer will tear open the fault line beneath the asphalt." You expect me to order 6 armored vehicles to accelerate toward explosives. I expect you to decide whether hating me matters more than keeping your family alive. The lead vehicle reached the first suspension tower. 20 seconds. Luca raised 2 fingers. The soldier behind Evelyn tightened his grip on the pistol. She stared at Luca. Ask your driver why the evacuation protocol was changed this morning. His gaze flickered. That hesitation was all she needed. Evelyn drove her shoulder into the nearest gunman and threw her full weight sideways. The shot struck the roadway beside her. She rolled through the rain, caught the edge of the emergency control box, and slammed her bound hands against the exposed switch. Red warning lights ignited across the bridge. Massive steel barriers erupted behind the lead SUV, separating the convoy from its escort vehicles. The drivers braked instinctively. "No!" Evelyn screamed. "Keep moving." Luca seized his radio. "All vehicles accelerate. Do not stop!" Engines roared. The last SUV cleared the center span. Just as Evelyn struck the secondary release with her heel, a thunderous metallic crack split the storm. The roadway collapsed behind the convoy, dropping into darkness and exposing a jagged fracture that ran across the bridge's entire width. The lead vehicle stopped less than a yard beyond it. For one breath, no one spoke. Then lightning illuminated the wreckage below. Silver wires ran through the broken concrete in a precise geometric pattern. Luca recognized it immediately. His father had designed that detonation system 23 years ago, and only 4 men had ever been taught how to build it. 3 were dead. The 4th stood among the people Evelyn had just saved. Luca turned toward his soldiers, but the bridge lights suddenly went black. A second shot cracked through the darkness. Evelyn jerked as the bullet tore across her shoulder. She stumbled over the fractured edge and vanished into the storm below. "Find her," Luca roared, reaching the railing too late. "Alive," his radio hissed, and an electronically distorted voice whispered through it. "You should have let her die, Luca. Now the next bridge will carry your entire family to hell." Luca reached the broken railing 3 seconds after Evelyn disappeared. Far below, the river churned between concrete piers and twisted sections of fallen roadway. Emergency lights from the convoy swept across the water, catching steel fragments, white foam, and one strip of emerald fabric snagged on an inspection ladder. No body surfaced. Close both riverbanks, Luca ordered. Search every maintenance platform and drainage tunnel. No one leaves the bridge. His security chief, Gabriel Voss, stepped out of the darkness with a pistol in one hand and blood running from a cut above his eyebrow. At 46. Gabriel had served the Moretti family longer than any living captain. He had taught Luca to shoot, negotiated his first alliance, and carried Luca's father out of the warehouse where he died. The shooter escaped through the western access shaft, Gabriel said. Cross must have had someone waiting below. Luca looked at the torn fabric moving in the wind. She was shot. She may have planned that too. 11 months earlier, Evelyn Cross had walked into the Moretti infrastructure boardroom and stopped a $30 million project with a tuning fork. 12 executives had laughed when she struck the small instrument against the steel edge of a bridge-bearing sample and pressed its stem to the metal. Evelyn had stood before them in a fitted navy dress and cream jacket, completely at ease with the room's attention. She was nearly 440 pounds, strikingly beautiful, and accustomed to men mistaking her softness for weakness. The note from the tuning fork had wavered. "This alloy contains too much phosphorus," she said. "It will become brittle below 20 degrees. The supplier S certificate claimed otherwise. Luca S, construction director, insisted the material had passed 3 inspections. Evelyn requested a portable spectrometer, tested the sample herself, and proved that the certificates had been falsified. The supplier was dismissed before sunset. 2 weeks later, federal investigators discovered the company had sold defective steel to projects across 4 states. Luca hired Evelyn the following morning. She became indispensable without ever being treated as important. She reviewed convoy routes, calculated weight limits for armored vehicles, and forced Moretti contractors to document materials they had once purchased through handshakes and threats. When captains complained that she delayed operations, Luca ignored them because her calculations were always ready before he needed them. He rarely credited her publicly. Gabriel disliked her from the beginning. The family survived 40 years without an engineer questioning every order he once told her during an inspection. Evelyn had smiled. The bridges didn't survive 40 years, that's why I'm here. She marked every structure she personally cleared with a tiny blue triangle drawn inside the maintenance log. It was not an official symbol. Years earlier, her father, an honest municipal inspector, blamed for a collapse caused by counterfeit bolts, had used the same mark to indicate that he had verified a structure with his own hands. He died with his reputation ruined. Evelyn kept the habit as a private promise, never to sign anything she had not examined herself. Luca noticed the triangles, but never asked what they meant. He noticed other things instead. The quiet authority in her voice when crews resisted her, the way she wore jewel-toned dresses beneath her reflective vest, and the calm confidence with which she occupied space in rooms designed to exclude her. Attraction came easily. Respect took longer because Luca had been raised to value loyalty proven through blood. Evelyn had no Moretti blood. Gabriel did. 3 months before the Bellarosa summit, Evelyn submitted a report warning that access to the family's bridge control network was dangerously centralized. One administrator could alter alarms, cameras, and convoy signals without secondary approval. She recommended dividing control between engineering and security. Gabriel rejected it. During an attack, one command structure saves lives, he said. During an inside attack, one command structure kills everyone. Evelyn answered. Luca had read the argument while preparing for negotiations with the Allied families. Gabriel had protected him since childhood. Evelyn had worked for him less than a year. He approved Gabriel's system. Now standing above the river as search teams descended toward the black water, Luca remembered that decision with a discomfort he refused to name. Gabriel handed him a waterproof evidence bag. Inside was Evelyn's phone, recovered near the emergency control box. "We unlocked it," Gabriel said. "There's a draft message addressed to Victor Sands." Sands controlled the rival family trying to seize the eastern ports. Luca read the unsent message on the screen. "The convoy will reach the center span at 11:42. I will make certain it stops there." The words matched what Evelyn had done. She had raised the barriers and forced the convoy into the precise section rigged to collapse. Yet, she had also screamed at the drivers to keep moving. "Send the phone to my private technical team," Luca said. Gabriel's jaw tightened. "There is no need. We watched her sabotage the bridge. I gave you an order before Gabriel could answer." A search captain called from the lower platform. "We found blood and a broken safety harness." "No body." Luca descended to the inspection ladder. Evelyn's emerald fabric hung beside a narrow maintenance hatch almost invisible behind the damaged pier. On its rusted surface, beneath a smear of fresh blood, someone had drawn a tiny blue triangle. Luca touched the mark. Evelyn had verified something inside that tunnel before she fell. When he turned to summon the search team, Gabriel was already ordering men to seal the hatch with concrete. 5 days before the Bellarosa summit, Evelyn found the first impossible number at 2:17 in the morning. She was alone in the Moretti engineering office, reviewing the bridge's final load calculations, while cold coffee sat untouched beside her keyboard. The convoy plan listed 6 armored salves, each reinforced with steel plating that added nearly 4,000 pounds beyond the manufacturer as standard weight. The bridge could carry them safely. What troubled her was a vibration reading recorded during the previous night's wind test. The western suspension cable had moved 7 millimeters farther than her model predicted. That difference was too small to trigger an alarm and large enough to become catastrophic under concentrated weight. Evelyn checked the weather data first. Wind speed, temperature, and humidity were normal. She recalibrated the sensors remotely and ran the simulation again. The same 7 millimeter deviation appeared. At dawn, she drove to the bridge in black trousers, a burgundy blouse, and a reflective jacket tailored to fit comfortably over her full figure. She climbed the western inspection stairs, slowly but steadily, refusing the maintenance worker who offered to carry her equipment. Her size made narrow access ladders difficult, but it had never prevented her from reaching any place her job required. At the cable anchorage, She struck the steel housing with her father's old tuning fork. The note trembled. Evelyn removed the exterior plate and discovered that 2 internal dampers had been replaced. The new components carried the correct serial numbers, yet their machining marks were wrong. Someone had manufactured counterfeit parts and stamped them to resemble the originals. She photographed everything and entered a blue triangle in her private notebook. An innocent contractor might have substituted cheaper equipment. She needed proof before accusing anyone. Evelyn called the manufacturer and requested production records. The company confirmed that the serial numbers belonged to dampers installed on a bridge in Oregon. They had never supplied replacement parts for Bellarosa. That made the substitution deliberate. She returned to Moretti headquarters and tried to upload her photographs to the isolated engineering archive. The system rejected her password. 30 seconds later, her access returned, but the files on her camera had disappeared. Only one image remained, stored on the camera's protected internal memory. A close view of pale gray grease surrounding the counterfeit damper. Evelyn rubbed a sample between her gloved fingers. The lubricant contained crushed graphite and had a faint almond odor. Moretti Security used the same specialized compound on armored vehicle hinges because it resisted saltwater corrosion. Someone with access to the Family S transport garage had handled the bridge components. She went to Luca's office. Gabriel Voss stood outside the door with 2 allied family captains. Through the glass wall, Evelyn saw Luca speaking with federal intermediary Daniel Mercer. Canceling the summit would cost the Morettis the shipping agreement and expose Mercer witnesses before federal protection became active. "I need 5 minutes with Luca," Evelyn told Gabriel. "He is negotiating the survival of this family." "So am I." She lowered her voice and explained that the bridge dampers had been replaced. She did not mention the grease or the deleted photographs. Gabriel listened without interruption. "Send me a written report," he said. "My account was compromised. Then use mine." That answer stopped her. If Gabriel's system was secure, he should have ordered an immediate forensic review. If it was not secure, sending evidence through his account would expose everything she knew. "I'll speak to Luca when he is finished." Gabriel stepped closer. "You work for this organization. Miss Cross, you do not decide which commands to obey, and I don't certify bridges, because someone's feelings might be hurt." She turned away. Her phone rang before she reached the elevator. The caller identification showed Luca's private number. "Meet me at Pier 9, his voice said. "Come alone. Tell no one." The call ended. Evelyn knew Luca was still inside his office. She could see him through the glass. Someone had cloned his voice. She took the elevator to the parking garage and found the rear passenger window of her truck broken. Nothing appeared missing. Beneath the driver's seat, however, she discovered a silver remote module she had never seen before. Its circuitry matched the control boards used in bridge diagnostic relays. She photographed it with a disposable sight camera rather than her phone, then checked the garage security mirror. A black sedan waited near the exit with its engine running. Evelyn understood the trap. Someone wanted her caught carrying a device that could later be converted into a detonator. She could not take it to Luca while his schedule, voice, cameras, and security channels were compromised. She also could not leave it in her truck for someone else to activate. She wrapped the module in an anti-static evidence sleeve and carried it to a concrete testing chamber beneath the engineering office. The chamber blocked radio signals and required 2 independent access codes. Evelyn knew only hers. When she entered it, the second authorization light turned green before she touched the keypad. Someone else was already logged into the system. The door began closing behind her. Evelyn forced her equipment case into the gap, dropped to one knee, and pushed with both hands. The motor strained against her weight. Metal scraped across concrete as she drove her shoulder beneath the door and forced herself through seconds before it slammed shut. The silver module remained inside the chamber. She heard a sharp electronic chirp. Through the observation window, a red light began blinking on the device. Evelyn ran to the emergency terminal and disabled the building's radio network. The blinking stopped at 1 second. She had prevented the signal from transmitting. but the shutdown triggered an automatic security alert under her name. Every camera in the corridor rotated toward her simultaneously. A message appeared on the terminal: unauthorized sabotage user, Evelyn Cross. Then a second line typed itself across the screen: you should have trusted the bridge to collapse. Now, Luca will watch you destroy it. The testing chamber unlocked 47 seconds after the warning appeared. The silver module was gone. Evelyn searched the sealed room twice, although there was nowhere to conceal it. The device had been removed through a narrow service conduit behind the ventilation panel. Whoever controlled the building had prepared the chamber before she entered it. Footsteps approached from the corridor. She removed the disposable camera-S memory card, slipped it beneath the lining of her reflective jacket, and left through the mechanical stairwell before security arrived. Her shoulder ached from forcing the door, but she descended 6 floors without stopping. By sunrise, every Moretti system listed her as a hostile user. Her office account had disabled the radio network. Her credentials had opened the testing chamber. Security footage showed her carrying the silver module inside and leaving without it. The recording omitted the door closing on her and the message threatening Luca. Evelyn called Luca's private number from a public phone. Gabriel answered. "Luca needs to hear me," she said. "He has seen the footage. Then he has seen exactly what someone wanted him to see. Come to headquarters and explain." Evelyn looked across the street. 2 black SUVs were already turning toward the phone booth. "You found me quickly. You are not difficult to find." The line went dead. Evelyn escaped through the kitchen of an all-night diner and reached a storage unit registered to her engineering firm. Inside were paper bridge plans, mechanical testing tools, and an old laptop that had never connected to the Moretti network. She enlarged the remaining photograph of the counterfeit damper. Beneath the gray security grease was a crescent-shaped machining scar. The same mark appeared in archived photographs of demolition mechanisms designed by Luca's father. Those records were supposed to have been destroyed after his death. Only 4 men had learned his system. 3 were dead. The 4th name had been removed from every surviving document. Evelyn could not identify him, but she understood his design. The Bellarosa explosives were never meant to detonate first. They would direct investigators towards sabotage, while counterfeit dampers created a progressive structural failure. The bridge would collapse when the armored convoy braked at the center span. Standard evacuation procedure required every driver to stop after an explosive warning. The killer had built the plan around Moretti protocol. Evelyn spent the next 4 days moving between public libraries, construction archives, and abandoned inspection stations. She used cash, kept her phone turned off, and slept in 2-hour intervals. Each time she tried to contact Luca, his security team reached the location before he answered. On the final afternoon, she discovered that her blue triangles had been erased from the Bellarosa maintenance log. In their place were digital approvals carrying her name. Someone was preparing to claim that she had personally certified every counterfeit component. She had one option left. Evelyn entered the bridge through an obsolete drainage tunnel shown only on her father's original municipal plans. She inspected the western pier, traced the hidden wiring, and installed a diagnostic relay to measure the fault line. Removing the explosives would alert the saboteur and might trigger the secondary charges. She could only control where and when the damaged span failed. While she worked, someone accessed the relay after her and replaced its internal board with the stolen module. At 11:19 that night, Moretti soldiers surrounded her beside the severed cable. They found the detonator in her truck. They found the falsified payment records. They found a witness from the maintenance crew who swore Evelyn had ordered him away from the bridge. Then Gabriel gave Luca the surveillance photographs. Evelyn watched disbelief turn into something colder in Luca's eyes. She tried to tell him his security network was compromised. But Gabriel's men stood within hearing distance. Naming the hidden drainage tunnel would give the saboteur access to her last physical evidence. Luca asked whether she had planted the device. "I installed the casing," she answered. "Not what's inside it. It was the truth. And it sounded like a confession." He ordered her execution. Minutes later, she saved the convoy, exposed the old Moretti detonation pattern, and felt a bullet tear across her shoulder. When Evelyn fell from the bridge, she did not reach the river. Her safety harness caught on the inspection ladder beneath the roadway. The impact drove the air from her lungs and nearly dislocated her injured shoulder. She cut the emerald fabric, snagged above her, opened the maintenance hatch, and marked it with a blue triangle so Luca would know the tunnel mattered. Then she climbed inside. Blood ran down her arm as she moved through darkness. She reached a vertical shaft leading toward the southern riverbank and heard search teams above her. For one desperate moment, she believed Luca had ordered them to rescue her. Then Gabriel's voice echoed through the tunnel. Seal every lower exit. If Cross is alive, she does not reach the riverbank. Evelyn understood that surrender meant death. She moved deeper into the shaft until dizziness forced her against the wall. A metal door opened somewhere ahead. Strong hands caught her before she fell. She woke hours later on a narrow bed, with her shoulder bandaged and one wrist secured to the frame. A gray-haired man sat across from her, studying the memory card she had hidden inside her jacket. She recognized him from an old photograph in Luca's family archive. Samuel Moretti, Luca's uncle, and the fourth man taught to build his father's detonation system. The man everyone believed had died 17 years earlier looked at Evelyn and said, "If you want Luca to survive the next bridge, you will help me destroy the Moretti alliance." By dawn, the Bellarosa summit had failed. The Allied leaders survived, but the federal intermediary refused to sign the shipping agreement, while Moretti security remained compromised. Two families withdrew their support. A third demanded control of the eastern port as compensation for the attempted attack. Without Evelyn, Luca's infrastructure network began failing before noon. No engineer would certify the emergency convoy routes she had previously rejected. 3 armored vehicles became stranded on an aging freight bridge after their combined weight cracked a support joint. Deliveries stopped. Witnesses scheduled for federal protection could not be moved safely. Every delay strengthened Victor Sands. Gabriel urged Luca to declare Evelyn responsible and release the evidence to the family council. "Give them a traitor," he said. "Fear becomes anger when it has a name." Luca stood in the darkened bridge control room, staring at Evelyn's photograph on a security screen. No body was recovered. Then she escaped. She was shot by someone positioned behind our line. Gabriel's face remained still. Cross had an accomplice. That answer should have satisfied him. It did not. Luca ordered Evelyn's phone, truck, and engineering records transferred to his private residence. Gabriel objected until Luca reminded him that the order was not a request. The first contradiction appeared inside Evelyn's handbag. Her mother's account had received $2 million, but the banking application stored on Evelyn's phone had never accessed it. The account was opened using a passport number that belonged to Evelyn's mother and an address where she had lived 19 years earlier. Evelyn had personally corrected that address on every Moretti employment form. She was meticulous to the point of irritation. If she had created a secret account, she would not have used outdated information that made verification more difficult. The planted evidence had been assembled by someone using an archived background report. Luca said nothing to Gabriel. The second contradiction came from the bridge photographs. Daniel Mercer arranged an independent forensic analyst through his federal contacts. The analyst confirmed that the images had not been digitally altered. Evelyn had entered the restricted chamber, installed the relay, and carried the equipment case away. But the timestamps were wrong. The bridge camera showed Evelyn leaving at 11:08. A toll camera captured her truck 3 miles away at 11:06. Both recordings used satellite-synchronized clocks and could not be correct. The analyst examined the bridge system and found that its timestamp had been rewritten through a security administrator account. Only Gabriel's division possessed that authority. That still did not prove Gabriel had used it. 6 senior officers shared emergency access through his command server. Luca needed the third contradiction. He created one. At 4 that afternoon, he summoned Gabriel and 3 security captains separately. He told each man that Evelyn's body had been recovered from a different location. Captain Aaron Pike was told she had been found near the northern floodgate. Captain Marcus Dean heard that divers found her beneath Pier 4. Captain Elias Ward was given the southern pumping station. Gabriel alone was told that Evelyn had been discovered inside the abandoned St. Agnes waterworks. Each man received an order to keep the information secret. 2 hours later, a Moretti surveillance team watched a black sedan stop behind St. Agnes. 3 masked gunmen entered the building carrying gasoline and suppressed weapons. Luca's soldiers captured one alive. The prisoner had no identification, but his boots carried the same pale gray grease Evelyn had photographed around the counterfeit dampers. Sewn inside his jacket was an access card for the Moretti transport garage. During questioning, he refused to name his employer. Before Luca could move him to another location, the man collapsed from poison hidden inside a false dental crown. Gabriel arrived 9 minutes later. Too quickly, Luca had not informed him about the arrest. "Who told you we had a prisoner?" Luca asked. Gabriel glanced toward the dead gunman. "The guards reported it. I replaced the guards before the operation." For the first time in Luca's memory, Gabriel had no immediate answer. Then alarms sounded throughout the estate. A fuel depot near the eastern port had exploded. Gabriel's communication channels filled with reports, forcing Luca to release him to coordinate the response. The timing was precise. Someone had prepared a distraction in case the St. Agnes ambush failed. Luca could arrest Gabriel, but doing so without proof would divide the family. Half the captains regarded the security chief as the last living symbol of Luca's father. If Gabriel was innocent, Luca would destroy his organization, while Victor's sons waited at the port. If Gabriel was guilty, an early arrest would warn every accomplice and ensure Evelyn was killed. Luca returned to the recovered evidence and studied the draft message on her phone. "The convoy will reach the center span at 11:42. I will make certain it stops there." The language bothered him. Evelyn never called the center of a bridge a center span in technical instructions. She used numbered structural sections to prevent ambiguity. He opened months of messages from her. Every route warning contained exact identifiers: span B4, pier W2, joint N17. The draft had been written by someone imitating her without understanding how she communicated. Luca remembered what she had said before he ordered her death. "Ask your driver why the evacuation protocol was changed this morning." He called the lead driver. The man admitted Gabriel had personally delivered a revised emergency procedure 3 hours before the attack. The new order required every convoy vehicle to brake on the center of a bridge after any explosive warning. Luca felt the full weight of his mistake. Evelyn had saved his family after he condemned her in front of the men who framed her. Her last look had not asked him for mercy. It had demanded that he think. He had failed her. At midnight, Luca returned alone to the maintenance hatch. Gabriel wanted sealed. He opened it and followed Evelyn's blue triangle into the tunnel. Blood marked the wall for nearly 200 yards before disappearing beside the vertical shaft. On the floor, he found half of Evelyn's broken safety harness and a brass button torn from an older man's coat. The button bore a Moretti crest discontinued 17 years earlier. Only one branch of the family had worn that design. Luca drove to the cemetery before sunrise and ordered Samuel Moretti's sealed mausoleum opened. The stone coffin inside was empty. The empty coffin contained a map. It was carved beneath the removable silk lining, too shallow to notice unless someone stripped the interior. Luca photographed the pattern and recognized the river, the abandoned rail line, and the old municipal pumping stations west of Bellarosa. One location had been marked with a 4-pointed star. The Moretti family had owned a hydroelectric station there until a fire destroyed it. 17 years earlier, the same week, Samuel Moretti supposedly died. Luca went alone. He left his phone at the cemetery, changed vehicles twice, and approached the station through the forest before noon. The building appeared abandoned, but rainwater had been cleared from the entrance, and the corroded lock was oiled. Inside, he found blood-stained bandages, bridge diagrams, and Evelyn's emerald blouse folded beside a medical kit. A pistol touched the back of his neck. "You still lead with your anger," Samuel said. "Your father never managed to beat that out of you." Luca turned slowly. Samuel looked older than the man in the family portraits, but the dark Moretti eyes were unchanged. A burn scar covered the left side of his throat. "Where is Evelyn?" "Safe from the men you ordered to kill her. I ordered her taken alive, after you put her on her knees and raised your hand." Luca had no defense. A door opened across the room. Evelyn stepped out wearing loose black trousers and a borrowed grey shirt. Her right arm rested in a sling. Bruising darkened her cheek, and pain tightened her expression with each careful step. She remained proud and striking despite the exhaustion hollowing her eyes. Luca moved toward her. She lifted a pistol in her left hand. "Stop." He obeyed. The space between them had once held trust, desire, and words neither of them had been willing to say. Now it held the memory of Rain, a loaded weapon, and his execution order. "I know the evidence was fabricated," Luca said. "Knowing it now, does to change what you did then. No, you trusted a system. I warned you was compromised. You trusted Gabriel because he helped raise you. And when the evidence told you what you already feared, that an outsider would betray you, you stopped thinking." Each sentence landed cleanly because it was true. "I came to get you out. I got myself out." Samuel lowered his weapon, but did not put it away. "If we are finished discussing Luca's remarkable talent for arriving after the danger, we have a larger problem." He spread a set of contracts across an old control console. They concerned the Eastern shipping corridor, but several pages contained routing codes rather than legal language. Samuel explained that Luca's father had designed demolition systems during the family's violent expansion. Gabriel, then a young security officer, had helped catalog the plans. 17 years earlier, Samuel discovered Gabriel selling route information to private military contractors and moving weapons through Moretti ports. Samuel intended to expose him. The hydroelectric fire was Gabriel's answer. "He killed 6 workers and left enough of my blood at the scene to declare me dead," Samuel said. "I survived because one technician pulled me into a drainage channel. I disappeared after realizing Gabriel controlled the investigators, the family doctor, and half your father's captains." "Why didn't you contact me?" Luca asked. "You were 19 and worshipped him." Luca looked down at the contracts. "What does this have to do with the summit?" "The alliance agreement transfers emergency authority over every eastern port to a unified security command." Evelyn said, "Gabriel's command." The federal negotiations had made the provision appear temporary and necessary. Once the agreement was signed, Gabriel could route weapons, money, and people through 5 family territories without separate inspections. Victor Sands was not the mastermind, he was the buyer. Gabriel had arranged the bridge attack to kill the Allied leaders and Luca's brother, leaving Luca politically isolated. If the convoy survived, Evelyn would take the blame, and the frightened council would still grant Gabriel emergency control. Every outcome gave him the ports. Samuel tapped a clause near the end of the agreement. "The alliance reconvenes in 4 days at the Moretti Founders' Banquet. If they do not sign, merciless witnesses lose their negotiated protection, and Sands takes the eastern docks by force. Canceling the event would sacrifice the witnesses and trigger a territorial war." Luca studied Evelyn. "What proof do you have?" "Enough to show the bridge evidence was false, not enough to convict Gabriel before your council." Samuel possessed old payment ledgers connecting Gabriel to the hydroelectric fire, but they proved only past corruption. Evelyn S. photograph linked Moretti's security grease to the counterfeit dampers. Yet hundreds of employees could access it. The missing evidence remained inside Belarus's Western Pier, the original control junction that recorded every command sent to the explosives. Gabriel's men were scheduled to pour concrete into the chamber that afternoon. "We have 90 minutes, Evelyn said. "You are injured, and I'm the only person here who can remove the junction without erasing its memory." Luca wanted to forbid her from going. The command rose naturally to his tongue. Then he remembered her kneeling in the rain. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Evelyn's expression shifted not toward forgiveness, but surprise. "Follow my instructions exactly." They entered the bridge through the southern drainage tunnel 38 minutes later. Samuel monitored security frequencies from the hydroelectric station, while Luca supported Evelyn through the narrow passage. She refused to lean on him until dizziness forced her to stop. Without speaking, Luca offered his shoulder. This time she accepted it. At the Western Pier, Evelyn opened the junction housing with her left hand and connected a mechanical reader. The extraction required 8 uninterrupted minutes. At 6 minutes, Samuel's voice came through the radio. Gabriel changed the schedule. Concrete crew entering now. Boots echoed inside the tunnel. Luca drew his pistol. Evelyn kept working. "You have 90 seconds, he said. "I need 2 minutes. Then you have 2 minutes instead of dragging her away." Luca moved between Evelyn and the approaching men. The first gunman rounded the corner. Luca shot the light above him, plunging the passage into darkness, then drove the man against the wall. A second fired blindly. The bullet struck the control housing inches from Evelyn's hand. She did not flinch. The reader flashed green. Got it. Concrete began pouring through a pipe overhead. Evelyn pulled the memory core free as grey slurry flooded the chamber. Luca lifted her from the rising mixture and carried her into the drainage passage, while Samuel remotely sealed the emergency gate behind them. They emerged at the riverbank with seconds to spare. Evelyn examined the recovered core beneath the daylight. A bullet had cracked its outer casing, but the internal storage strip remained intact. Then she saw a tiny blue triangle etched beside the manufacturer's code. Her father's mark. She looked at Samuel. He inspected this system. Samuel's silence confirmed it. Evelyn raised the pistol again. "Tell me why my father's signature is inside a Moretti demolition device, or neither of you leaves this riverbank." Samuel looked at the pistol in Evelyn's left hand and answered without reaching for his own. "Your father did not build that device for the Morettis. He built a way to expose it." Evelyn's finger remained against the trigger guard. Samuel explained that Thomas Cross had discovered counterfeit steel and hidden demolition systems beneath 3 municipal bridges 18 years earlier. Luca's father had used controlled collapses to eliminate rival shipments, then paid contractors to blame structural failure. Thomas refused to certify the bridges. Gabriel threatened Evelyn, who was 19 at the time, and forced Thomas to inspect the devices instead. Thomas secretly modified each control junction so it preserved an unalterable record of every command, including the physical identity key of the person issuing it. The tiny blue triangle marked the modification. "My father was blamed for the North River collapse," Evelyn said. "He tried to disable the charges." Samuel replied. "Gabriel detonated them early and altered the inspection reports. 12 people had died. Thomas Cross lost his license, his reputation, and eventually his life after years of being called a corrupt engineer." Luca felt Evelyn's anger turn toward him. "My family destroyed your father. Yes, I didn't know. You keep saying that as though ignorance absolves the man who inherited everything built from it. It does." The answer deprived her anger of an easy target, but it did not lessen it. She lowered the pistol only because her injured shoulder began trembling. They returned to the hydroelectric station and connected the damaged memory core to an isolated reader. Thomas' modification had worked. The device contained a permanent log showing that the bridge timestamp was changed 19 minutes before Evelyn arrived. That proved the official story was incomplete. It did not identify who changed it. The identity field showed only a partial encryption key, GV04, followed by 6 corrupted digits. Gabriel Voss claimed the letters indicated the global verification protocol used by every Moretti security terminal. Without the missing digits, his attorneys could argue that hundreds of devices might produce the same code. Samuel's old ledgers provided the second level of evidence. Payments from shell construction companies connected Gabriel to the hydroelectric fire and to the manufacturer that produced the counterfeit dampers. Evelyn matched the machining scar in her photograph to equipment owned by one of those companies. It proved access and means it still did not prove. Gabriel ordered the Bellarosa attack, or intended to seize the ports. "We need him to use his identity key again," Evelyn said. Luca looked at the founder's banquet plans. "He will never touch another bridge control system after Bellarosa. He will if he believes the original log was destroyed, and we give him a target he cannot ignore." They built the trap around Gabriel's greatest advantage, his control of Moretti security. Luca returned to headquarters before sunset and behaved exactly as Gabriel expected. He announced that Evelyn had survived. accused Samuel of manipulating her, and ordered both of them captured. In front of the family council, he declared the Bellerosa memory core too damaged to recover useful data. Gabriel watched him closely. "Where is the core now?" he asked. "Destroyed. Who confirmed it?" There it was the need to know more than an innocent security chief required. Luca shrugged. Evelyn did when she tried to sell it to Sands. Gabriel's expression relaxed. Later, Luca privately told 3 people 3 different versions of the banquet security plan. Daniel Mercer heard that the federal witnesses would enter through the river tunnel. Captain Pike was told they would arrive by helicopter. Gabriel alone learned that Samuel would bring the surviving portion of Thomas Cross' original log across the old St. Catherine rail bridge at 9:10 on banquet night. No such log existed, but the rail bridge contained an older junction modified by Thomas. Evelyn had discovered it in his archived notes. If Gabriel attempted to collapse the bridge, the device would record his complete identity key. Lucas' men could arrest him there. Evelyn rejected the plan. "If Gabriel sends someone else, we capture another disposable gunman and learn nothing. Then I'll make him come personally." He stayed invisible for 17 years. You cannot insult him into becoming careless. She studied the banquet contracts and found a better pressure point. Gabriel needed the Allied leaders to sign before midnight. If Samuel appeared at the bridge carrying proof of the old weapons network, the Council could suspend Gabriel's authority and delay the agreement. Gabriel could not trust a subordinate with that threat. Any captain who read the evidence could use it against him. Evelyn added a second layer. She prepared a false engineering report stating that the St. Catherine Bridge remote system was disabled. The only way to trigger its charges would be through the manual control box beneath the eastern tower. Gabriel would have to insert his security key physically. Samuel volunteered to cross the bridge as bait. "No," Evelyn said. "He knows Samuel survived. He'll anticipate an ambush." She placed her own photograph beside the route. "He believes Luca still wants me dead. He believes I have the log and that I am desperate enough to trade it for protection. I crossed the bridge alone." Luca's refusal was immediate. "Absolutely not. You asked what I needed from you. I need you to follow my instructions. You were shot less than 2 days ago. That is why he'll believe I am vulnerable." Luca paced away, struggling against every instinct that equated protection with control. Finally he asked, "What is the fallback if the reader fails?" Evelyn produced 3 pressure-sealed mechanical recorders. Each used carbon film rather than digital memory. She would attach them to separate cable housings. Any manual trigger would imprint the vibration pattern and exact activation time. Samuel would photograph Gabriel entering the control chamber from across the river, while Mercer's federal team documented the signal through an independent receiver. 3 sources. No single system Gabriel could erase. Luca accepted the plan on one condition. Evelyn controlled the timing, but he controlled the extraction route. She agreed. At 11:43 that night, Gabriel received an encrypted message, apparently sent from Evelyn's stolen engineering account. "I have Thomas Cross original command log, St. Catherine Bridge, banquet night. Come alone, or every Allied leader sees it before they sign." The message was marked unread for less than a minute. Then the Moretti security network quietly requested archived demolition plans for St. Catherine. Evelyn watched the request appear on the isolated monitor. Gabriel had taken the bait. The founders' banquet began at 8 beneath the vaulted ceiling of Moretti Hall. 5 Allied leaders sat around an oval table, surrounded by attorneys, captains, and federal observers. The final agreement rested before Luca in a black leather folder. At midnight, Daniel Mercer's temporary authority to protect the federal witnesses would expire if the alliance had not signed by then. The witnesses would be exposed, and Victor Sands's men would move on the eastern docks. Gabriel stood behind Luca's chair in formal black, calm and indispensable. At 8:42, a guard entered and whispered in his ear. Gabriel showed no reaction, but Evelyn watched through a concealed camera as he touched the security key inside his breast pocket. She waited in a maintenance truck beside St. Catherine Bridge, wearing a deep blue coat over her bandaged shoulder. The mechanical recorders were already fixed beneath 3 separate cable housings. Samuel observed from an abandoned signal tower across the river. Mercer's federal receiver was hidden inside a utility van half a mile away. Luca had placed Captain Pike's most trusted men near Evelyn's extraction route. At 8:55, those men stopped responding. "Samuel, check the southern access road," Evelyn said. The camera in the signal tower rotated. 2 black Savs blocked the road. 4 armed men dragged Captain Pike from his vehicle and forced him to his knees. Gabriel had discovered part of the trap. Samuel's voice tightened through her earpiece. "Leave now. If I leave, we lose him. You lose more if he already controls the exits." Evelyn started the maintenance truck, but the engine died. Every warning light on the dashboard illuminated at once. Someone had installed a remote immobilizer. Her phone rang. Gabriel's voice came through the speaker. "Did you really believe I would come alone?" Evelyn looked toward the bridge. Fog rolled across the steel framework, hiding the eastern control tower. "You requested the demolition plans," she said. "I wanted to see which bridge you had chosen." A second camera feed appeared on her tablet. It showed Luca inside Moretti Hall, seated before the agreement. "You built an elegant trap," Gabriel continued. "Thomas would have been proud. Unfortunately, your father also believed evidence mattered more than power." A gunshot echoed from the signal tower. Samuel's camera dropped sideways. "Samuel?" Evelyn called. No answer. At the banquet, Gabriel leaned toward Luca and placed a phone beside his plate. The screen showed Evelyn standing beside the disabled truck, surrounded by red targeting beams. "She has Samuel's old records," Gabriel said quietly. "Order her death publicly, sign the agreement, and she may survive long enough to surrender them." Luca looked at the image without changing expression. "You told me she was already dead. I told you what the family needed to believe." Around the table, the Allied leaders began demanding an explanation. Gabriel raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Evelyn Cross has been located at St. Catherine Bridge with Samuel Moretti. They intend to sabotage tonight's agreement and deliver our shipping routes to Victor Sands." He projected selected files onto the banquet screens. Evelyn's falsified bank transfer, the security footage from Bellarosa, and photographs of her meeting Luca at the hydroelectric station. The final image had been altered to show Samuel handing her a document marked with the Sands crest. The room erupted. Gabriel gave Luca a simple choice: sign the agreement and authorize Evelyn's execution, or watch the alliance collapse before midnight. Luca stood at St. Catherine. Evelyn heard his voice through the live broadcast. Evelyn Cross acted against the Moretti family. Samuel Moretti is an enemy of this alliance. Any person assisting them will be treated as a traitor. The words struck harder because they resembled the first condemnation. Evelyn knew the rejection was part of their plan. Luca needed Gabriel to believe he still valued the alliance above her life. But knowing did not prevent the old wound from opening. Luca continued, "My men are authorized to stop her by any means necessary." The Allied leaders quieted. Gabriel smiled. Then Luca picked up the pen and signed the first page of the agreement. Evelyn's earpiece went silent. She was alone. 3 gunmen emerged from the fog and approached the maintenance truck. Evelyn raised her left hand while keeping her injured right arm close to her body. "I have the log," she called. "Gabriel needs it intact." The men hesitated. That was enough. She kicked open the truck door, striking the nearest gunman, and dropped behind the front wheel as bullets shattered the windshield. She pulled a manual flare from beneath the seat and fired it into the fog. Red light flooded the bridge. Across the river, Samuel rose behind the signal tower railing. The earlier shot had struck his radio, not his body. He photographed 2 gunmen entering the eastern control chamber. Neither was Gabriel. The plan had failed. Inside Moretti Hall, the second Allied leader signed. Then the third. Gabriel had adapted. He was allowing subordinates to operate the bridge while he remained surrounded by witnesses. Even if the mechanical recorders captured an activation, the identity key would belong to a disposable captain. Evelyn reached the underside maintenance path and moved toward the control tower. Each step sent pain through her shoulder. She found the first carbon recorder torn from its housing. The second had been crushed. The third still operated. She removed its film and slipped it into her coat. A voice came from the darkness behind her. "You always save 1 copy. Gabriel's younger brother." Captain Adrian Voss stepped onto the path, holding a pistol. He had served as the maintenance witness who claimed Evelyn dismissed her crew. He took the carbon film from her pocket. "Gabriel taught me to watch your hands." Adrian forced Evelyn into the eastern control chamber, where the two gunmen had already inserted security keys into the manual system. A digital countdown showed 28 minutes until the banquet agreement became permanent. "What happens at midnight?" Evelyn asked. "The St. Catherine charges detonate," Adrian said. "The collapse kills Samuel and destroys every physical recorder. You will be found beneath the tower with the manual trigger in your hand. And Luca, once he signs, Gabriel controls the ports. Luca becomes ceremonial until an unfortunate security failure removes him. At Moretti Hall, the fourth Allied leader signed. Only Luca's brother remained. Gabriel placed the final page before him. Luca watched the clock move to 11:54. He had 6 minutes to preserve Mercer's witness protection, expose Gabriel, and reach Evelyn before the bridge collapsed. Their original plan depended on Gabriel appearing at St. Catherine. He had not. Luca picked up the pen again. Gabriel leaned close. "You finally learned what your father understood. A woman can be replaced. Power cannot." Luca signed the final page. Gabriel immediately pressed his thumb to the authorization seal, activating unified control over all 5 ports. For one terrible second, he had everything he wanted. Then every screen in Moretti Hall turned blue. A live video appeared from inside the St. Catherine control chamber. Adrian Voss stood beside the demolition console, holding Evelyn at gunpoint. His voice filled the banquet hall. Once Luca signs, Gabriel controls the ports. Luca becomes ceremonial until an unfortunate security failure removes him. Gabriel's smile vanished. Evelyn looked directly into the hidden lens inside her father's old junction box. The system had not transmitted through the compromised Moretti network. It was broadcasting through the mechanical emergency line Thomas Cross had installed 18 years earlier. Gabriel recovered before anyone else in Moretti Hall. "My brother is speaking under duress," he said. "Cross staged that recording because she knows the council has already condemned her." On the screen, Adrian struck Evelyn across the face and dragged her toward the manual trigger. The room went silent. Gabriel pointed toward the image. "A performance, she controls the transmission." Daniel Mercer stepped away from the table and called his federal operations team. "The signal is reaching us through an independent emergency circuit. Miss Cross has no access to the receiving equipment. That proves only that the video is live." Gabriel still had a credible defense. Adrian could be acting alone. The bridge attack, the forged evidence, and the plan against Luca could all be blamed on a younger brother seeking power. Evelyn had anticipated that answer. Inside the control chamber, she steadied herself against the console and looked at Adrian. "Your brother will sacrifice you. He built this organization. He built a way to survive when it falls. You were never included." She nodded toward the carbon film in Adrian's hand. "Read the authorization imprint." Adrian glanced down despite himself. The imprint contained his key, the activation time, and a second encrypted command granting permission to arm the charges. That command had been sent from Gabriel S. master security account 10 minutes earlier. Adrian's face changed. Gabriel saw it on the banquet screens. "That code can be forged," he said immediately. Luca closed the leather folder. "Then you will not object to authenticating your key before the council." Gabriel refused. That refusal became the first admission he could not explain. Samuel transmitted Thomas Cross original ledgers from the signal tower. The records showed Gabriel purchasing counterfeit components through the same shell company that paid the Bellarosa maintenance witness. Mercer S. analysts compared the company S. authenticated tax records with the damaged memory core. The partial identity key matched Gabriel. Gabriel fought old ledgers from a dead traitor and data recovered by the woman accused of sabotage. "None of this proves I knowingly ordered an attack." Evelyn reached for the manual console. Adrian pressed the pistol against her wounded shoulder. She stopped, breathing through the pain. "You are right," she told Gabriel through the hidden lens. "So we gave you false information that only you received." Luca displayed the 3 security plans he had distributed. Pike had been told about the helicopter. Mercer had heard about the river tunnel. Gabriel alone had been told that Evelyn would carry Thomas S. log across St. Catherine. The bridge ambush could only have resulted from Gabriel S. version that establishes a leak, Gabriel said. Not my participation. Then explain why your master key authorized the charges after you learned. The log was here, Evelyn replied. Gabriel had no answer that fit both facts. Adrian lowered his weapon slightly. Gabriel triggered his contingency. Every light in Moretti Hall went out. Emergency shutters dropped across the doors, sealing the Allied leaders inside. Gabriel drew a pistol and fired toward Mercer before Luca struck his arm aside. At St. Catherine, the countdown jumped from 4 minutes to 30 seconds. Adrian stared at the display. He accelerated the timer. The remote system had bypassed the manual trigger. Gabriel intended to destroy the bridge, Evelyn, Samuel, and his own brother, rather than allow them to testify. Adrian ran toward the exit, the steel security door locked before he reached it. Evelyn moved to the control panel. The explosion could no longer be cancelled electronically, but Thomas Cross had designed a mechanical alternative. 3 red pressure valves stood behind the console. Opening them in the correct sequence would flood the charge housings with fire-retardant gel. The sequence was not written anywhere. It was encoded in the vibration pattern preserved on the last carbon film Adrian held. Give it to me. 22 seconds. Adrian handed her the film. Evelyn read the 3 imprints, translated their spacing into valve positions, and crossed to the first wheel. Her injured right arm could not generate enough force to turn it. Adrian stepped beside her. Together they opened the first valve. 14 seconds. The second resisted until Adrian kicked its corroded base, while Evelyn pulled with her left hand. 8 seconds. The third wheel was on the floor beneath the console, barely visible through the steam escaping from the pipes. Evelyn lowered her full weight onto the handle and forced it downward. The countdown reached 0. A deep impact shook the tower. Outside, 6 explosive housings ruptured beneath the bridge, but instead of detonating, they released columns of red fire-retardant gel into the river. The steel framework remained standing. Thomas Cross' final safeguard had worked. In Moretti Hall, Luca fought Gabriel across the darkened banquet table. Gabriel reached for the master security tablet, attempting to erase the port records. Luca trapped his wrist against the signed agreement. Mercer restored the emergency lights from a federal backup unit. Every Allied leader saw Gabriel's thumb pressed to the same master key that had authorized the St. Catherine charges. Gabriel looked toward his captains for help. No one moved. Captain Pike opened the shutters manually, and Mercer's federally deputized protection team entered. They had authority under the Witness Security Agreement and carried authenticated copies of the live transmission, the command signal, and the shell company records. Gabriel made one last attempt to reach his weapon. Luca disarmed him and forced him to his knees in the exact position where Evelyn had knelt on Bellarosa Bridge. "Shoot me," Gabriel said. "Prove you are still your father's son." Luca looked at the Allied leaders, the federal observers, and the evidence Gabriel could no longer erase. "No, you will live long enough to answer for every person you buried beneath your lies on the banquet screens." Evelyn emerged from the St. Catherine control tower beside Adrian. Samuel joined them from the signal tower. For the first time, the entire Moretti Council saw Evelyn not as the accused woman who had destroyed a bridge, but as the engineer who had saved 2 of them and exposed the man who tried to steal an empire. 3 weeks later, Evelyn Cross returned to Bellarosa Bridge. This time, no one forced her onto her knees. The surviving section had been converted into an open-air hearing platform overlooking the river. Every Moretti captain, Allied leader, contractor, and federal observer who had witnessed her accusation stood beneath the repaired eastern tower. Luca waited at the center in a dark suit without guards beside him. Gabriel Voss remained in federal custody, charged under the Witness Security Agreement with conspiracy, attempted murder, weapons trafficking, and obstruction. His authenticated commands connected him to both bridge attacks. While Samuel S. Ledgers reopened investigations into the hydroelectric fire and the North River collapse, Adrian Voss surrendered and provided the locations of Gabriel S. hidden records. His cooperation spared him the harshest sentence, but not prison. Victor Sands lost access to the eastern ports after federal agents seized 3 weapons shipments identified in Gabriel's routing files. The alliance agreement survived only after its unified security clause was removed. Each family accepted independent engineering oversight and federal inspection of protected shipments. The changes cost Luca power. He signed them anyway. Evelyn stepped onto the bridge wearing a fitted emerald dress beneath a cream coat, her injured arm finally free of its sling. The gunshot wound still limited her movement, and her doctors expected months of rehabilitation. She refused to hide the scar. Luca addressed the crowd. Evelyn Cross warned me that our systems were compromised. I dismissed her warning because I trusted blood and authority more than her proven judgment. When false evidence appeared, I humiliated her publicly and ordered her death. No justification followed. She saved my family after I condemned her. She exposed Gabriel Voss through her own courage. Her father's work and a plan she designed the accusation against her was false. My decision was mine alone. He presented restored inspection records bearing Thomas Cross's name. The Municipal Engineering Board had formally cleared Thomas of responsibility for the North River collapse. A permanent memorial would list him as the inspector who tried to prevent it. Evelyn accepted the records, but she did not thank Luca. Public truth was not a gift. It was a debt finally paid. Luca then placed a contract on the table between them. It granted Evelyn's newly created firm complete authority to inspect every bridge, tunnel, and port controlled by the Alliance. No Moretti officer could override her findings. She would choose her staff, control her evidence systems, and retain the right to terminate the agreement without penalty. "This is not an offer to return to my employment," Luca said. "It is recognition that you were never beneath me." Evelyn read the contract, and if I refuse, then your name remains cleared, your father remains vindicated, and your firm receives every record needed to pursue the families in court. You owe me nothing. She looked at the man who had once expected loyalty to survive without trust. "I'm not ready to forgive you. I know I may never be. I know that too." Evelyn signed the contract but closed the folder before Luca could speak again. "I am leaving for 6 months. My firm has been hired to review public bridges in 3 states. If I return, it will not be because you waited for me. What would bring you back? Proof that you can build something without needing to control everyone inside it." She walked away alone. 6 months later, Luca stood on the completed Bellarosa Bridge as the first civilian convoy approached. The repaired cables carried tiny blue triangles beside every verified joint. Independent engineers, not Moretti soldiers, controlled the safety station. Evelyn arrived in a burgundy suit, confident and radiant, her shoulder fully healed. Luca did not offer an order, an apology, or a promise. He handed her the final inspection tablet. "You have the authority," he said. Evelyn examined the readings and gave the signal to open the bridge. The convoy crossed safely. When the last vehicle reached the opposite bank, Luca asked if she planned to stay. Evelyn looked at the bridge they had nearly destroyed by refusing to trust each other. "I am willing to see what we can build," she said as equals. Luca offered his hand. She took it freely.